fans, Falcon Nation, welcome to Dirty Fanatics United. If you're new to the channel, man, hit that subscribe button. I greatly encourage y'all to check us out on YouTube if you're tuning in on Twitter. I am your host, C Money, followed by my co-host, Mr. David. Cody should be in the building very soon. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight at 8 o'clock as DFU breaks down tonight's title of the show is Falcons Fly South for the winner, officially out of the playoffs. Atlanta Falcons, hit that like button, leave a comment. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel. David, what's going on, man? A heartbreaking loss today in Atlanta in your home stadium against a fly-high Seattle Seahawks offense. David, we were there for the pregame show this morning. We spoke on the things that the Falcons must do to prevent an ugly loss today in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Initially, we're not able to hit on those key factors. David, where did today's game go wrong? You can start it off from the top of how the game started all the way to the end. You were there first in person. So, David, the mic is yours.
Okay. Like I said, I think in my pregame we said that we had to contain Jackson in Jigbu. I know I butchered his name. 2 touchdowns. We missed on that. I think that I said that AJ probably needed to shadow him the whole game. That didn't happen. And then, he got on Mike Hughes and scored. Defense, first half, excellent. The special teams let us down coming out the half, and I think the energy of the team and the whole stadium left out with that kick return. Everything was good coming out of the half. The energy was still in the stadium. They get that run back, and the whole atmosphere changed.
David, you're exactly right. I mean, you go into halftime looking at a fairly decent game. Defensively, you showed up. You made a lot of good stops leading up to that 2-minute drive. The defense kind of folds on that 2-minute drive to allow the Seahawks to tie it up before halftime. But heading into halftime, you seem as if you were matching up pretty well with what the Seahawks had to offer as far as defensively. Offense did put up 6 points in the first half. You were expecting to see a game changer after halftime, being that the Seahawks were getting the ball first. That was not the turn of events in Atlanta today, as the Atlanta Falcons fall short to 4-8 on the season. Another losing season, 8 in a row, that is. 2 for Raheem Morris throughout his tenure, 5 for Terry Fontenot since he's been the GM here in Atlanta. Cody Keeler is here to talk Falcon football with us tonight. Falcon fans, tune in. Bring your comments to the podcast because we will be answering every question or every statement you have to bring here to the podcast. Cody, what's going on, man? We opened the show up with David giving his analysis of what went wrong from the start of the game, how the game panned out. Cody, I'll give the same opportunity to you. Just from the start of the game, Cody, you were there. You've seen it in first person. What happened today in Atlanta, and where did the Atlanta Falcons fall short in this horrendous, what was the score, 39 or 37?
37
to 9 against the Seattle Seahawks. My bad, correction. I said 4-8. We are now 4-9 on this season. Cody, just your thoughts. From the beginning, how did you feel about the Atlanta Falcons heading into halftime up to the fourth quarter when it just all fell apart?
Well, it started out promising, guys. I was shocked, honestly, how well things kind of started out. Defense playing lights out. It was such a promising start to this game, and then I don't know, man. It comes down to special teams again, man. They absolutely sucked the wind out of us again today, and even with the blocked field goal, at that point I'm still feeling okay. I'm like, yeah, that would have put us up. That at that point, I think it would have been 9-6. And I'm going, okay, we're going to be okay. And then straight out of halftime, the one thing you can't let happen, you let happen. And you let Seattle's return all the way in. Like David said, you could feel like just once they scored that touchdown, my first thought was, this is going to get ugly real quick. And if we don't go down and score a touchdown or go get points, it's not going to be pretty. And that's exactly what happened. You come out, that first drive, I think, is the drive Bijan fumbles the ball. And then your very next possession is an interception. two and, relatively quick, turnovers by Seattle's defense on our offense. And man, you can only ask this defense to do so much. I don't care if it's the 95 Bears or if it's, the 25 Falcons. If you're on the field as much as our defense is, as fast as our defense is, you're going to give up points. Mm-hmm. That's how football is. It does not matter at any level, high school, college, professional. If your defense is on the field as much as our defense is, you're gonna give up points. And it just, but my thing is I think I saw a lot of quit in a lot of players today. There was a lot of quit, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Not so much defense, but on offense, I felt like a lot of guys quit today.
Speaking of, making your defense play more snaps than they need to do throughout the season, I think we talked about this in previous podcasts about the defense outnumbering the amount of snaps that they have taken over the offense by like 3 times the amount this season for the Atlanta Falcons defense. Today, the Atlanta Falcons, this is their possessions the whole game. You had a punt, a field goal, a punt, a blocked field goal, a fumble, an interception, field goal, interception. All around bad day for the Atlanta Falcons in all 3 phases. If you look at the defense after halftime, getting outscored, I believe it was 30 to like 31 points or something like that. The Atlanta Falcons gave up. And then they were unanswered for like 23 of those points the whole third quarter. The Atlanta Falcons did not adjust well. One key factor that we can talk about as far as a credit to the defense, James Pierce Jr. now with 6 sacks on the season, a guy that has a sack in each of the last 5 games, the only player to do so since Micah Parsons' era here in the NFL. So shout out to James Pierce Jr. As we like to say here on the podcast, F those picks, because James Pierce Jr. was a great selection for the Atlanta Falcons.
Definitely. I think that, we ended up with Pierce and Xavier Watts for that pick. So I definitely not feeling bad going into next season, not having that first round pick. Looks like we'll be picking early in the second round. So how things are going. So yeah, I think, that's the only thing, you got to find a bright spot. So, Pierce definitely was worth the money that and the pick that we gave up for him. So can you be the defensive rookie of the year on a losing team? We'll see how the voters and everything go with that. But he's definitely leading. I think Walker was predicted to be was leading in the percentage of who they were going to choose for the defensive player of the year for the rookie class. But if he goes down for an extended period of time, our bets probably points to James Pierce Jr. right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. James Pierce and Jalen Walker both leading rookies in sacks at that position on the defense side of the ball. So definitely a great pickup when it comes to last year's draft. I think Terry hit on some key factors of, what this future could be here in Atlanta for this defense. And it's shown on the field, how much of that is a Jeff Ulbrich inspired pick when it comes to a James Pierce Jr., when it comes to a Billy Bowman late in the draft. You talk about the Xavier Watts pick, like how much of this defense has been built through Jeff Ulbrich. Shout out to Mark over on YouTube for joining on YouTube. He says, we are not a well-coached team. Mark, I would have to agree with you 100% that the Atlanta Falcons are a badly coached team. I told David before we went live, we were badly outcoached after halftime. Clint Kubiak and the Seattle Seahawks found a way to scheme around this Atlanta Falcons top 15 defense. You haven't seen a lot of teams this year put up those 30 points, but now that you look at it, you look down the hourglass of what the Falcons have done this past season, you now have 3 games where you have allowed 30 or more points on the scoreboard. Today, the Atlanta Falcons break the record for the most allowed points since the Mercedes-Benz Stadium has been built in Atlanta. 37 points is the number that tops any amount of score that you have allowed in that stadium. The Atlanta Falcons found a way to do it in year 2 with Raheem Moore's regime. So that's going to open up the podcast. Where does this team stand? Cody, you spoke on it about you seeing a lot of quit today. Well, I could say I've seen a lot of quit against the Carolina Panthers when I sat in the stands and watched that 30-0 blowout. I've seen a lot of quit when the Atlanta Falcons played the Miami Dolphins in the bins. I've seen a lot of quit today as we lose 37-9 in Mercedes-Benz. Guys, there has not been a season that I have turned my TV off as much as I have this year during a football season. I'm a diehard through and through. That's why we run this podcast. But there comes a time where enough is enough. And I think the Atlanta Falcons have reached that point. I'm just a fan talking. Other fans may have different beliefs. I think Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson's time in Atlanta is officially through. There's 4 games left here in the season. You did give Arthur Smith 3 years to correct his wrongs. He went 7-10 a good bit of those seasons. The last season, not so well when you lose to the Saints in the fashion that you did. But, guys, with the 3 losses that we just mentioned, Miami, Carolina being swept by a divisional opponent, you talk about Thursday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. David, we spoke on it. If you get swept by the Bucs, what future holds here in Atlanta for Raheem Morris? What ground does he have to stand on to show I'm the right choice for your head coach position?
Now, the last couple of weeks we've been going back and forth about what we're going to do about the coaching staff. So
that's right.
At one point, I think everybody on the list of hosts for DFU was like, get rid of everybody. Mm-hmm. Then we kind of softened our stance, looking at the injuries and everything that have gone, before us this year. Definitely missing Drake. We do not have a number 1 receiver. I was said that one of the
David, you bring up a good point when you talk about Drake London and not having that receiver 1, but the receiver's been an issue since week 3. You fired an Ike Hillard because you say Ike Hillard was not addressing the receivers in the right direction. It was a communication problem, is what Raheem Morris stated while the firing of Ike Hillard. Now you're in week 14. You're having special team problems throughout the whole season. Not only was today a loss because of special teams. The whole game was a bad game. Yeah. But last week's game was a loss to special teams. The Carolina Panthers in the overtime game, right after halftime, you allow a fumble. They score off of that possession. No firing of Marquise Williams. It's week 14, and Raheem Morris is now saying there needs to be changes to the special teams. It's been an issue all season.
Well, yeah, what I was hitting on is that we definitely have wavered back and forth about what we were going to do with the coaching staff. I was saying that, Raheem was safe through the season if we didn't get embarrassing losses. Mm-hmm. This was an embarrassing loss. And, definitely if we go down, I think, nothing's going to happen this week. Short week. Right, short week going to Tampa. And if we get down in Tampa and don't compete and the team looks like they're not playing, for the coaching staff like it looks at some points today in the second half, like saying, look like the team quit, and we get the same results when we go to Tampa this week, something's definitely going to have to be done. I don't know if Marquise Williams is going to Tampa with us, but when we talk about the coordinators and everything, that's the main coordinators, offensive, defensive. I know he's a special team coordinator, but something's got to be done, and he's the first one on the chopping block. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely, a famous quote, Cody. I'm coming to you now with that same exact question I just spoke with David about. A former comment was made before the season, before Raheem Morris's initial first season in Atlanta last year. Raheem Morris stated in a press conference, if Arthur Smith done his job, I wouldn't be here. Cody, is Raheem Morris doing enough here in Atlanta to continue his tenure as the head coach in Atlanta next year?
No, and honestly, I don't give a shit that we're on a short week. He shouldn't be making a trip to Tampa. Zach Robinson shouldn't be making a trip to Tampa, and neither should our special teams coordinator. None of them should be. You're at the point, like to your point, Chase, this is the first time, and I've been a Falcon fan for a long time. We're talking 30 plus years at this point. I have not watched and been more embarrassed and been more like, guys, I know this is going to sound so dumb, but this is a God honest truth. I buy hats all the time. I buy shirts all the time. I'm constantly buying Atlanta Falcons stuff. I've bought 2 hats this year. That's how that's just how frustrated that I am that I'm not even willing to spend hard-earned money on this team other than on tickets and on two hats. That's just where I'm at. I don't know. Like he hasn't done enough. And you know what, for what he's saying about Arthur Smith not doing his job. Well, guess what, buddy? You're not doing your job either. And as a matter of fact, you're doing a worse job than he did. Like, as frustrating as Arthur Smith's job was, watching Arthur Smith, I've been a Falcon fan for 30 plus years. I don't leave games before games are over, no matter how bad. I don't get, this is the second time since I've, been doing this that I've sat there. I didn't leave today, but it was really hard not to. Same
Very
thing,
hard.
I would say, and it was, I was with the wife for the first time in my life under this regime. I left a Falcon game before it was all said and done. And that's saying a lot, because I've rode with this team through a lot, from Chris Chandler to the Michael Vick, Chris Redmond, the Brian Leftwiches, the Matt Ryan, debacle that happens at the end of his career, going through Desmond Ridder, going through Kirk Cousins, going through this. It's bad. It's just bad. And the thing is that they can fix it. This team. See, that's my thing. When people are like, fire Terry. No, don't fire Terry, because here's my thing. Terry has put an incredibly talented team together on this field. You cannot tell me on paper that this team is not one of the most talented teams in the NFL. The coaching staff has taken a group of talented individuals and has made them look so pedestrian and made them look so pathetic. It's embarrassing.
Who can come in and change this around in one season? Because we can't have a 2-year growing, growth thing. I need somebody who's going to come in with this roster right now and win immediate, because I can't stomach another 4-8 season.
And that's the thing is, I think
we'll keep this on the table too, because you're heading into next season not knowing who the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons will be week 1. You're heading into the fact of, if you do go get a new head coach, if you go for a new offensive coordinator, say you do lose Jeff Ulbrich, you got a new DC here in Atlanta now that has acquired these players that Jeff Ulbrich and Terry has brought onto this team. The question is, who wants to come to Atlanta? Who wants to come to a situation where you don't have a starting quarterback? You do have stars like Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts is probably out the door. Tyler Algier is probably going to be a starting back somewhere else next year. You have an offensive line. McGarry will be back next year, but who knows what McGarry's status will be after a whole season complete break. The Atlanta Falcons are, if you really think about it, now this is not me trying to be negative, but if you really think about it, the Atlanta Falcons are back at the forefront of the Arthur Smith era. You had the situation where you didn't know who the quarterback was. You don't know how long it's going to take Penix to get back healthy. You don't know if Penix is the franchise guy, if he can stay healthy, if he can complete a full year. It's year 3 now. Penix is yet to play a full season here in Atlanta. So who would accept the Atlanta Falcons head coaching job? There's names here in the comment section, and I don't want to pass over people's comments. John Moreno says, okay, guys, Falcons front office needs to bring in Kubiak. The Falcons don't have any more feathers to pluck. But when I think about Kubiak, that's not a veteran head coach in the NFL neither. As the comments down here says, if you bring in Kubiak, you must get a veteran coaching staff around Kubiak, which I think was Raheem Morris's problem from the get-go. You hired a Jimmy Lake as a DC. You hired a Zach Robinson, a first-time offensive coordinator in Atlanta. You hired no experience at all. And that was the issue from day one. So,
but the problem with that is like, this is Zach's second year, and we've not seen any growth. If anything, we've seen regression. We've seen it go completely the opposite way. So at this point, like, I don't care who comes in at this point, because as any kind of NFL head coach or any kind of coordinator, with the talent that you have, you should be able to win football games.
I mean, I agree 100%.
That's the thing is, like, it comes down to how much more can we be like, oh, well, Raheem, bad clock management. How much longer are we going to sit here and be like, well, it's just, we have got, well, just bring somebody in, because the thing is Raheem could have fixed this early. When we're sitting here going, we're not seeing any growth in the offense because you're brand new, supposed to be face of the franchise. Michael Penix isn't comfortable or doesn't want to run under center because he's not comfortable.
The crazy part to me is, and Cody, you said it, regress. The Atlanta Falcons were 6-3 last season with this offense, with a defense less talented than what you have now on the field. Where is the progression? Because you did lose Kirk Cousins. You brought in Penix. A lot of last year's downfall is you didn't take Kirk out soon enough to let him heal. You brought in Penix on a short notice type of deal. Penix comes in, starts winning games, but it's a little too late for Penix to control what happens in the dynasty of that season, because the Atlanta Falcons were on the brink of losing playoff contention already, as it was when you started Penix. You let us go on a 3 to 4 game losing streak. Now, speaking of the losing streak last season, you went on a 5-game losing streak this year. How many losing streaks did you have with Arthur Smith?
No. Before you get too far out, Chase, you asked the question about who would want to come to this roster.
That's right.
I think there's a lot of coaches that will want to come to this roster because, we're minus that, quarterback position that's, guaranteed. But this roster, I think there will be many of our head coaches that would like to jump on this train because they come in and change just some of the motivation of the players. Like I say, if Pittsburgh let Tomlin go, I would kind of be.
You got to hop on that train.
I would be on that. I don't know. There has to be a name that would come in that's going to guarantee, not guarantee wins, but it has to be a proven coach. Mm-hmm. I wasn't on Bill Belichick coming here because I don't think he fit the culture of Atlanta and what we got going on, but maybe I was wrong in thinking that because Raheem, I don't know what's going on right now. I gotta give a lot of thought before I really weigh in and give you my okay, this is what I think would happen because I'm wavering back and forth because stability is a thing, and we jumping off of too soon or staying on too long. So.
Well, and that's my thing is, and I know it's something that our fans want. They want this culture of Atlanta and all that stuff, and I understand that. I really do. You want the identity of this team to fit, the culture of Atlanta. But guys, our fucking culture sucks. Our culture been lose. Get Matt Ryan, win, do some winning, do some really good winning, get to the Super Bowl, and then you go back to then now it's this trash again. The culture needs to change. That it's plain and simple at this point. The culture needs to change because the culture that we got right now blows. With the lack of better words, this culture blows. And it's a constant losing, and it's a constant of like, oh, well, let's keep getting our buddies in, and let's keep getting. That's why I wanted Bill Belichick in here. So I wanted him in here to start the season because he would have come up in here and he would have shut things up and been like, look, I don't care what you guys like, what you want. This is my team. This is going to be my roster. Now, do I think Bill Belichick could have come in here and won a Super Bowl or what would the draft picks would have looked like? Who knows at this point? Who knows what it would have been? But it would have been something different. And that's what's got to change. Something has got to change, not just on a player aspect or a coaching aspect. There's something in the front office that's got to change too. I'm not going to sit here and rag on Arthur Blank because I don't think Arthur Blank is the problem because I do think he cares about this team and the city and the fans. I really think he does. But his inner circle, there's something in Arthur Blank's inner circle that's got to
Rich McKay.
It's and for people that are like, well, Rich McKay is not part of it.
Cap.
Bullshit. Rich McKay is still involved heavily in Atlanta Falcon operations, and he needs to go. I'm sorry that's Arthur Blank's buddy. I don't care at this point. I'm 35 years old, and I would love to see my Falcons back in the Super Bowl and win it before I fucking drop dead.
Sterling brings up a great point here. We talk about having the veteran coaches, but there is some young coaches that seem to find the right job, have the right coordinators in their position. You could talk about Ben Johnson that we had in the building. You could talk about McDaniel McDonald, whatever his name was, that was in the building at one point in the offseason. Harborough was in the building as well. He kind of had his mindset on where he was going, but You did bring in some coaches like Ben Johnson. You went in for the Seahawks head coach. And look at the season those guys are having. So it's always a hit or miss when you do hire a first-time head coach. But can we all agree an offensive-minded head coach is better than a defensive-minded head coach in the NFL?
Well, Ben Johnson was my choice when
Absolutely.
In the coaching search last year. I've been on record saying that I wanted Ben Johnson coming, but we missed that. So it was a surprise when we did get Raheem and everything.
This is a crazy stat to me. Since the 6-3 era last year, you are 6-14. You know, it's also another crazy stat. Another crazy stat would be last year you were 5-2 in one possession games. This year you're 2-10 in one possession games.
That's the difference.
That is a regress if I haven't seen one. The numbers don't lie. You can look it up. It's there. Sterling Woods says that I've already read that one. Mr. Med says Pitts had a good season, then he just started sucking. We went through multiple kickers. Mooney lost his groove. I just don't know if it's just a coaching situation. Every year starting over is not building. I could agree to that to a lot of extent as well, because you do have to set a scheme for these players in Atlanta. You do have to set some kind of blueprint for this team to build. If you want to call it a rebuild or building stepping stones, whatever it may be, there's certain things that you have to do for teams to get to that area. You look back at Dan Campbell, his first season with the Lions was a 2-win season. Good can come from bad, but you've seen Dan Campbell's team take the next step. They took the next step. They didn't regress. The kicking situation was a topic that was brought up a lot throughout the offseason as far as media asking, is Koo ready to go? Is there a good competition at the kicking position? You didn't get an actual kicker till week 12. The Atlanta Falcons coaching staff didn't decide to bring in an actual kicker till week 12. You did sign a guy. He went to Carolina and absolutely shit the bed. You released him after that game. So then you bring in Gonzalez, has been playing very well. He's played decent enough. I think maybe you have found a kicker that can stay on your roster for the next year or two. But even the receiver, that brings me back to the receiver situation. You've known that you have had a receiver issue since the Carolina game. The Atlanta Falcons receivers today, 21 yards for the Atlanta Falcons receivers. A tight end put up.
That was one of my keys to the game. We had to get production out of the wide receiver position. I said Mooney had to have a big game because that's really the only viable option I think that we have on the roster. Don't know with what went on the field. We've seen KJ Osborne play at a professional level and produce, and he didn't no elevation.
Still no elevation of Chris Blair. Still no upbringing of Nick Nash. These guys that you drafted.
Had to see Drummond and Seals.
Casey Washington, another healthy scratch this week. So, is Casey Washington the new Ray in Atlanta? I don't know what's going on in that locker room, but, the more tweets that I read, the more that I truly start to believe that Raheem Morris may be losing this locker room. I talked to a guy, his name's A1. He runs a podcast. Shout out to my guy, Chris. He stated that he was on the sideline today. He's a Fox News reporter or sports reporter. So he sometimes gets game field action as far as being on the sideline with the Atlanta Falcons, being on the sideline with the opposing team. The first half, he was on the Falcons sideline, or the part of the first half, he was on the Falcons. Then he went to the Seahawks. After halftime, he was more or less on the Seahawks side, and then towards the end of the game, he was over on the Falcons sideline. He stated to me today that the Atlanta Falcons did not have any sort of urgency or drive on the sideline after halftime. He said they were even, when he was on the Seahawks side of the field, the Seahawks players gave off this certain aura of that, can we just end this game? The Falcons are totally out of this game. They obviously don't want to compete today. That leads me to believe that the Atlanta Falcons have given up on what this coaching staff brings. The kick return did take a lot of animosity, a lot of momentum out of that building. I'm sure you were there. You've seen it firsthand. I've seen it on TV. When I start hearing Seahawk chants on the live TV, I know it's a very, very irritating thing to see at a game at your home stadium. Guys, you've won 2 home games this year. What does that say to all the season ticket holders? To the Davids of the Atlanta Falcon fans, of the Codys, the Ricks, the guys that pay year in and year out to have a seat in the bins, to show up for that team every Sunday, to continue getting this kind of play style. The Georgia Bulldogs have 2 wins in the last 2 weeks in the Benz. The Atlanta Falcons have 2 all year. That is an issue for this team. And that to me is and it may be an office situation, Cody. Maybe it is time for Arthur Blank to hand the reins to his son. Maybe it's time to turn the page and let Rich McKay walk and let this young-minded, businessman, whatever Arthur Blank's son may be here in the next future for the Atlanta Falcons, maybe it's time to turn the page. Maybe
the business side of the Atlanta Falcons, I don't think is bad. So I'm not going to say Arthur Blank, is out of touch because he's in touch with the fans. I think he's got it to where it's the cheapest, the least expensive fan experience in the league. And year in and year out, I think the last couple of years they've been voted as the best game experience for the fans. So I don't think he's out of touch with the business side of.
I just want to know who's hiring the coaches. I just want to know who's hiring these head coaches. That's
now that part. But the business side of it. I love Arthur Blank.
Yeah, no, not Arthur Blank. I feel like he does a lot.
I love what he do for the city.
He does a tremendous amount for the city, a lot for charities in Atlanta. I mean, and Blank's a businessman. I mean, he runs not only a football team, but he runs a soccer team, a pro golf league now. So Blank, when it comes to business, Blank knows all about business. When it comes to, concession stand prices, but somebody is missing on these coaching interviews or who's making the decision. And I don't think it's Blank. I don't say it's Blank.
Yeah,
I think it's more Rich McKay.
I don't think he's Jerry Jones and where he knows every aspect of the football side of things. He's the owner. I think that the people that he have in place need to be revisited, like you're saying. Rich McKay is supposed to be hands off of the football side of things, and they're supposed to be letting the football people run the thing. Like saying, we don't know if that's truth to that or not, but it's not Uncle Arthur. Leave him alone.
Well, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe the fact that Arthur Blank, because I think Arthur Blank he's hands-on on the business side of it, but not very hands-on the football side of it. And maybe that's where Arthur Blank needs to maybe go ahead, because I think, don't get me wrong, I think Arthur Blank is probably one of the nicest people you ever meet, most generous man. I mean, he's a great guy, absolutely. And so I just don't know. Part of me kind of wishes that he had a little bit of that Jerry Jones in him, to where he's like, hey, look, I'm putting a lot of money into this. This is my thing. And, I'm running the business side of this, and y'all are absolutely blowing the football side of it.
Yep.
So, guess what? The boss is coming in. Maybe it takes, because look at Jim Irsay's daughter. She's been on the sideline for the Indianapolis Colts now since he passed, and she's constantly involved in listening and asking questions. And the girl is standing on a sideline taking notes for this for her football team. Maybe that's what Arthur Blank needs to do, is maybe he does need to get more involved, because I think he's given the reins or too much liberty to somebody. And whoever that somebody is.
A little off topic, but it just hit my head. Sorry, guys. ADHD kicking in. The Colts, since going 7-1 this season, have lost 5 of those games. So the Colts now really don't design their own destiny. We talked about Daniel Jones. That's why I'm talking about this now. Daniel Jones was a candidate that could be a free agent next year that we spoke about last week, David. Now today going out with Achilles injury. Kind of rough sakes over there in Indianapolis, once the strongest team in NFL, not looking so hot now. I want to get to some of these comment sections, because the comment section is absolutely doing their thing tonight. Shout out to everybody in the comment section. Sterling One says, our offense can't move the ball. The O-L is not playing well, and I really feel like Jake Matthews may be leaving soon. Sterling, I made a post today on Facebook during the game. I said, unpopular opinion, I do not like this offensive line. I don't know if it's a scheme situation. When it comes to run blocking, they do fairly well, but the missing of Caleb McGarry, the guy that everybody wanted out of Atlanta, wanted him hung up on the side of the stadium. Caleb McGarry has been very missed this year at that right tackle position. Elijah Wilkinson playing decent football, but there's just been too many critical mistakes. Even when Penix was the quarterback, a lot of blindsided sacks. Penix was, initially hurt because of that right side of the sack. So you're missing Caleb McGarry. Sterling also says these season ticket holders are tired. Abno says on the kick return touchdown, Guess who was on that side that got bullied? The one and lovely Guardian Cap Bertrand. I'm so sick of JB or whatever y'all want to call him. Guardian Caps, we'll call him here on the podcast. John Moreno says, whoever the coach is going to be, they need to bring in a decent quarterback. Kirk is done, and I don't see Michael playing next year. That is a big topic, John, and I talked about it pregame when David got off the podcast this morning. That is the question mark heading into the offseason. Who do the Atlanta Falcons want to sign as the quarterback until you get your Penix back? If Penix doesn't play next year, there's a couple of names that have been thrown around. A new name hit the list this week, Kyler Murray, potentially out of Arizona after this season. You have let's run through the list, Cody, because, Kyler Murray's name doesn't sound too sexy.
Say Call of Duty keeps coming out and say that's what he's focused on.
Kyler Murray's name doesn't sound too sexy, but when you listen to the name of bridge quarterbacks that will be available, it's like, maybe that is one of the top candidates. You have Kyler Murray, you have Jimmy Garoppolo, you talk about Tyrod Taylor, Zach Wilson, a possible Justin Fields. Let's pull up the list. Well, you know what? We got a whole podcast to talk about. We'll pull the list up because it doesn't look too shabby. A name was mentioned today on the podcast after David exited to watch the game. Mac Jones is another option for a bridge quarterback this offseason. Let's see. Free agent QBs 2016. See what Mr. Chat GPT has to say for us. Because I said 2016, didn't I? 2026.
There you go.
I wish it was 2016. My God.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Loading. Shout out to Miss Christie over on YouTube. She says, hey, guys, glad to have you here, Miss Christie. Hit that like button. Share us to a Falcon fan. I have been talking about the O-line since last season. It has been a problem. It's been highly shaded because your special teams has played so badly. Your play calling has been horrendous this year. So we're going to run through the list here of bridge quarterbacks to get you over the hump until a possible Penix return. Daniel Jones, as we stated today, he was injured with the Achilles injury. Aaron Rodgers, but that is a question mark because retirement is very close. Russell Wilson, that has not played very well since he's been a bridge quarterback. Sam Howell, anybody know that name? Sam Howell. Marcus Mariota, Mitchell Trubisky, David Mills, several other quarterbacks like Easton Stick, Mike White, Logan Woodside, Will Grier, Stetson Bennett, Justin Fields, a possible free agency marking, Jimmy Garoppolo. There's guys, the free agency list. Tyrod Taylor.
You didn't say Desmond Ridder.
Desmond Ridder. I mean, guys, it's not too stacked when it comes to who you would sign in free agency unless you do what 680 the fans talking about. Let's trade away Drake London and Bijan and get draft picks for this upcoming draft. That's 680's take on it. Mark Smith says Mac Jones is the one. Actually, Mr. Mark was the guy that brought up Mac Jones this morning when we were doing the podcast. Mac Jones is Mr. Mark's guy. Sterling Wood says, how is Bennett doing? Bennett has been a backup for the Rams. It's not even considered that he will be released. That is just a hot take off of if the Rams get such a high first-round pick as we are going to give them to be Matthew Stafford's replacement in the upcoming future. Christy Lewis says, not Mariota. So, I mean, David, we spoke about it last week, and a name that we both kind of agreed on was Tyrod Taylor until you could get a Penix back in the mix of things. David, not a big fan of Justin Fields, as a lot of Falcon fans seem to like Justin Fields in Atlanta. I'm not so hot on that name. I'm not so hot on it. But a lot of Falcon fans have kind of leaned that way when I have one-on-one conversations with Falcon fans. That's been a name that's continuously been brought up.
Can anybody in the comments explain that to me? I don't get that. I really don't. He's losing to Tyrod Taylor right now, or no? He's a Jet, right?
Yeah. Justin Fields is a Jet, losing to Tyrod Taylor right now.
Good God.
Not only were the Falcons eliminated today, but so were the Jets.
Jimmy G is a name to keep jumping off the page for me for some reason.
Yep.
If we look for bridge quarterback, the names Jimmy G, Trey Lance. I know those are probably
Trey Lance. That's another one. David.
Oh, I think we lost David.
All right. Well, Cody, you heard the list. You heard the list of players that could, be potential QBs here in Atlanta. Cody, what is your take on a quarterback when it comes to – because, see, this is what really going to matter. We all know it. Every Falcon fan has, their beliefs and who they think should be the quarterback, but it's all going to come down to who the Atlanta Falcons move forward with at the head coach position, the offensive coordinator position, what the new team looks like next season. It may be a repeat of Raheem Morris another year in Atlanta. Don't ask me why, but that may happen. Cody, who could you see as a bridge quarterback in Atlanta off of the list of names that we just threw out of there? Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor. You talk about Zach Wilson. Some of the names there, Aaron Rodgers, if he doesn't retire. Also, Daniel Jones coming off of an injury. Sam Howell, Marcus Mariota. I mean, there's not a lot of big-time players that are hitting this free agency list. So, where do you kind of lead with it when you talk about a Russell Wilson, a Mitchell Trubisky, Eason Stick, Mike White, Logan Woodside, Will Grier? Like, the list is very
it's not a great list, but I guess on I've got three. Like, I think Tyrod Taylor's probably, God, I don't know with Tyrod. Because look at what he's doing with the Jets. The Jets are god awful, but they just beat us.
Well, I will say Tyrod did get the late stick on the Jets. That season was kind of over with. His first start was against the Falcons. Actually.
That's true.
Yeah, and here's some more names for you before you continue on. You have Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis. That's just a couple of names thrown out there. But your top free agents, from what this article says, is a Daniel Jones, an Aaron Rodgers, a Russell Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, Malik Willis, Trey Lance, and Sam Howell. And a Marcus Mariota is your top picks at free agency that's heading into the free agent.
If I'm dreaming and he can run it back one more time and be decent, I would not mind seeing Aaron Rodgers in an Atlanta Falcon uniform. I know, if he just beat the Baltimore Ravens. He just beat Baltimore. He's got. What's the Steelers' record with him?
Who else is the Steelers OC? Arthur Smith.
Arthur Smith, and it's just like, but so my thing is like, I kind of wish the Steelers would start losing, because I want Mike Tomlin here. I think Mike Tomlin would be a great hire for the Atlanta Falcons, and if you could bring in Mike Tomlin and then bring in Aaron Rodgers. Just for a year. I'm not saying we need to have Aaron Rodgers here for 2-3 years plus. As much as I hate Aaron Rodgers, because I think he's kind of a tool. He's incredibly smart. He was a very good quarterback. That is somebody that you want a young quarterback to learn from. That's what Matt Ryan should have been to whoever what should have replaced. The right fit should have been learned from Matt Ryan. So, that's not a bad, maybe not necessarily from a let's go out and win football games because Aaron is so old, but it's the knowledge and the understanding of the game that is, to me at this point, is going to be more valuable for Michael Penix, because I feel like Penix just is underprepared and hasn't had a good quarterback coach. And what would Aaron Rodgers bring? But now, again, the problem with that is does Aaron Rodgers want to teach a young quarterback? Because he sure as hell didn't want to do it with Jordan Love.
That was the media display anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know. Tyrod Taylor wouldn't be bad, because it would, I think, ultimately see what this offense should look like and run like, because he is kind of mobile, even though he's an older quarterback. So I honestly don't know at this point.
Well, let me throw this name out there. What do we think about a veteran Joe Flacco?
Yeah,
played decent in Cincinnati.
Let's roll back just a little bit before we get too far away from Aaron Rodgers. What does the Aaron Rodgers contract look like in Atlanta? How much do we have to invest in him? We already we're gonna have some dead cap with Cousins. So how much money are we gonna have to invest in a bridge quarterback that we saying that Aaron Rodgers is? Are we gonna have to pay him $25-30 million on top of what we're gonna have to give in dead money for Cousins? Because that's why our special teams are bad, because we don't have money to pay for that one level up from a JD Bertrand on our special team. So I don't know.
Well, here's a good comment from Sterling Woods. Shout out to Sterling Woods, always bringing the comments to the podcast. He says, man, we might have to get a quarterback in the second or third round. What do you guys takes on a quarterback in the second or third round of this year's draft? Because, other than Mendoza from Indiana and Ohio State's quarterback, I'm kind of iffy on what's coming out of this year's draft. I don't even look for
a
big name to slide.
A second or third round quarterback is a backup at this point in the game. So, I'm not stack the team in other areas with that first. That's to be our first pick in the draft, and then we wasted on a developmental quarterback. Then our next impact player taken in the third round. I don't see it.
Ms. Kersey says we need someone like Tomlin, but the reality is he will probably retire as Steelers head coach. Why would he leave one of the most loyal fan bases in the NFL? He has been with the Steelers a while, but there was a game this year where the fans chanted, "Fire Mike." So I think they're at, they may be going a little above with, that judging, because I think Mike Tomlin is a great coach. And if there is or DFU is not saying he will hit free agency or, that coaching search or whatever, but if he somehow does, that's got to be your top candidate. That's got to be at the top of the list, Mike Tomlin. Shifting the page a little bit from the quarterback scenario, we'll talk more about it, I'm sure, as the offseason comes around, as we find out what the head coach position is going to look like. I want to talk about the tight end free agency that's coming up, because this may help the Atlanta Falcons, and it may help a Kyle Pitts situation on a team-friendly deal. You have a lot of big-name tight ends that are hitting the market this season. You talk about Isaiah Likely from Baltimore, David Njoku from the Browns, Dallas Goedert with the Eagles, Cade Otton from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously Kyle Pitts for the Falcons, Travis Kelce from Kansas City, Mark Andrews with Baltimore, and I'm about to slaughter this name, Chig Okonkwo from Tennessee is also hitting the free agency list. So that may be a situation where nobody really looks at Kyle Pitts. They look at some of these bigger names. You get a team-friendly deal to extend Pitts a year or two. But if you had to turn the page from Kyle Pitts, as I know where Cody stands with the Kyle Pitts situation here on the podcast, what name kind of stands out to you there when we talk about, tight end free agency that you may have to address in the upcoming free agent?
Njoku from the Browns. Would be my pick if you're gonna hopefully move away from Kyle Pitts, because I wanted to root for Kyle. I wanted him to show up and show out this year. How the hell are you the tallest person and one of the biggest people on the field, and you can't make contested?
One of the fastest. Don't forget how fast Kyle Pitts is.
Yeah, and you can't make contested catches. How many more times are you going to let – this is like, what, another interception off of your hands, Kyle? Another one? It's just like I don't understand Kyle Pitts, because he could be so much better, and he's not. He's just not. Yeah. Was college really his peak? Because we've seen flashes of greatness. Tight end day, Kyle Pitts goes absolutely stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that? The other 16 NFL games that he plays in.
I agree.
Today wasn't bad. I think he was 90 our leading yards. 90 yards was our leading receiver.
Last week 84.
Yeah, but he only does that ever so often.
Well, it's just like me and David talked about earlier. I don't think you were able to make the last podcast, Cody, but me and David spoke on the fact of, how Kyle Pitts started off hot this season. Then he hits that, because there was a time everybody on the podcast was like, hey, re-sign this man. We can get this man, and we can keep Kyle Pitts here on this team and continue to grow. Now you go through the middle of the year of the season, kind of falls off. The whole offense really falls off. And then you come back now the last two games where he's your leading receiver. Granted, you haven't had Drake London. Is it a game plan situation, or is it a Kyle Pitts situation? That's the question for me. You've seen, Pitts in the Arthur Smith scheme. He was more of a blocking tight end with Arthur Smith. You've seen a lot more of, I forget his name, and I don't know why I forget his name, because he was a great tight end for us. The one that went for 500 yards with Kyle Pitts that season. It was an Arthur Smith hire.
I know who you're talking about.
Redhead.
Yeah.
You're talking about Hayden Hurst. I'm talking about the tall guy. He was his name slipped in my mind. It'll come to me after the podcast. I know it will.
I know who you're talking about.
But you had players, and you've had Pitts in these schemes to where it hasn't really benefited Pitts so much, but now you see games where you game plan for Kyle Pitts. He puts up 84 with one drop last week to 90 yards this week in a crucial loss to the Atlanta Falcons, being eliminated from the playoffs officially. But the comments are rolling in now. Sterling Woods says Pitts is gone, man. Smith Samantha says Pitts is not consistent. Sterling Woods says Pitts will have some interest from some teams. So, it's all according to how that plays out. Yeah, if you get that situation to where you can give Pitts a team-friendly deal. And chat, y'all see how we're kind of already throwing in the free agency situation, looking ahead, because the Falcons were officially eliminated today. The season is officially over. You have 4 games to finish out. And something that really, really irritates me as a Falcon fan, and I'm sure it irritates this young guy that's been a great player for Jonnu Smith. That's his name.
Smith, yeah.
Jonnu Smith, yes.
Somebody that's been a really big, player for our O-line. Chris Lindstrom now in year 6 and has not even sniffed the playoff race. Not even sniffed the chance of making a playoff race. So, it's frustrating as a Falcon fan, as a Falcon franchise guard, to be drafted so early, to go through the scenarios of Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota, Taylor Heineke. You gotta somehow, some way, get these players while they're in their prime to the playoffs, because, and we talked about it, David, numerous times this season. You got Drake and Bijan right now. They're in their prime. You don't want to waste these years with players that could be a big impact in a deep playoff race with the right coaching staff, with the right quarterback at the helm of this offense. While we're on free agency, a big looming part of this year's failures have been receiver. Drake London has been the only receiver. He could really be at 1K already on the year if he didn't get injured. He's missed 3 games now. He's still at 800, still ranked in the top 10 with receiving yards. Drake London, an absolute stud. I heard a podcast today say that Drake London is not a receiver one, and he would not be a receiver one on other teams, but I would have to highly disagree with that take.
Yeah.
Terrible take.
Some of the free agents that we're looking at here on this list, a lot of them will probably get big paydays from their teams, as in George Pickens. I'm sure the Dallas Cowboys find a way to sign George Pickens next year. Rashid Shaheed had a great day today against the Atlanta Falcons. Mike Hughes, you are cooked. Deebo Samuel, Alec Pierce, I'm sure he gets a big payday in Indianapolis. We're talking about Jacoby Myers, Wardell Robinson from the Giants, Romeo Doubs, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, and Jawan Jennings. If you had to pick a name on that list, I'll throw my name out there first. If I'm going for receiver 2, I'm looking at a Jawan Jennings from San Francisco. Obviously the table's open to your guys' decisions. Who would you pick off of this top 10 list if you had the choice to grab a receiver this free agency? Wandale Robinson's not a bad one either.
Yeah, since you already said Jennings, that would have probably been the name that I gravitated to the first. But, Keenan Allen has always been a receiver that I like, very professional. If you're looking for that veteran receiver that can come in and probably mold some of these younger receivers that we do have that needs, obviously coaching staff is not developing. So I think you need a veteran presence in the locker room that just to help mold these younger receivers and turn them into better receivers. I still hold out hope that Nick Nash is going to end up being something for us. He has a knack for getting open, but we can't get him off practice squad for some reason. There's been a couple pass catchers on that practice squad that I thought that they probably was gonna when we signed them to the practice squad at the beginning of the year. I thought they'd probably see a couple elevations and probably stuck with the team. Talking tight end. Joshua Simons from South Carolina. I'm real high on him, and I definitely think that coming up in the next couple of years we probably get some burn out of him. But from what you're saying out that list, Keenan Allen to come in to help mold some of these younger receivers.
Keenan Allen was a guy that rotated around last season, I believe, that could have possibly been a landing spot for Atlanta. The Chargers end up signing him. Cody, a receiver there on those lists, if you need me to repeat them, I will. Is there any name that kind of stands out to you that you can get on a decent deal, can be that veteran presence, or are you looking at a young guy to make a name here in Atlanta with a Drake London?
No, the name that jumps out to me, and it was a name that jumped out to me, a few years ago was Mike Evans. Mike Evans, he's older, but he's tough and he's got that grit, man. That's Tampa Bay's Julio Jones. He's the guy that makes the catches. He gets open. He's still quick. And then you take away from Tampa Bay too.
If it was Mike Evans about 2 years ago, I say pull the damn trigger. But just based off of what he done this year as far as injury related, Cody, you kind of threw it out there when you said Tampa Bay's Julio Jones is Mike Evans.
Yeah,
but it's just the end of what Julio produced in NFL for me on Mike Evans. It's not a bad presence to have in the locker room with a young Drake London, which I think familiarizes with Mike Evans a whole lot.
Right. And it's the attitude that he brings too. It's just that toughness and that physical, just that physical type wide receiver that that Drake London is. I think it would be a great mentor for Drake London because Drake's already got that dog in him, and now you add the Mike Evans veteranness, and then the ability, because think about that. People are going to be more focused on Drake than they are Mike. But it almost to me seems like you kind of get like that, hopefully you could get like a Mohamed Sanu season out of him.
Oh man.
In a wide receiver too with Mike Evans. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it helps out Darnell Mooney. I don't know what the hell happened to him, why he's dropped off. So
I'd have to look. Yeah, I'd have to look at the numbers, but I think for sure you save money if you release Mooney.
But it doesn't Mooney have one more year?
And if we cut him, we say I think that
it was like
the number is
18
million.
Is
no,
18?
I think
Okay.
it's 18.
Yeah.
I don't see nothing that says that Mooney will be on the team next year.
No,
off this year's production, more than likely not. One more position before we get out of here, and it's been a position that's been an issue. We seen when Diablo went out, the linebackers' depth wasn't too great. You lost a lot of games to J.D. Bertrand playing linebacker position. And one that has got to be at the top of my list, you have got to re-sign Caden Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
You have got to find a way to pay Caden Ellis this offseason. He will hit free agency. He's number 4 on the top 10 list here, but there's some really big names when it comes to the linebacker position in free agency, and I'm going to throw out the top 10. You have Devin Lloyd from the Jacksonville Jaguars, Nakobe Dean from the Eagles, Leo Chanel from the Kansas City Chiefs, Caden Ellis from the Falcons, Devin Bush from the Browns, Quincy Williams from the New York Jets, EJ Speed from Houston, Texas, Bobby Wagner, Demario Davis, a former Terry Fontenot type of communication, a Shaq Thompson from Buffalo. That's your top 10 list. A decent amount of names there on that list. You have to find a way to get Caden Ellis back. We know Diablo's back next season. If you look at that list, and this is just me speaking, I think the Eagles pay him. I'm going to Kobe Dean. I'm going with the dog, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that team right there, that 2022 national championship team. I got to go Nakobe Dean. If there's any chance, if there's any flirtation that you can grab Nakobe Dean, that's the guy on my list.
Wagner.
Wagner's a good vet present.
Yeah, if all the names, if talk about wish list, I don't think it's realistic that we can get him in.
Appreciate you, John.
But I'm going to say if any name on the list that we can put him next to Caden Ellis and Diablo, it has to be Wagner.
Mm-hmm. Cody, your thoughts on that free agency list there for linebacker position? This is top 10. There's going to be a whole nother list of 1 through 20, but right now this is their top 10 of who's available this upcoming free agency if they're not re-signed by their former team.
Well, yeah, I say you guys grab my 2 guys because I was going to say Nakobe Dean was probably my number 1, but it was probably 1A and 1B with Wagner there. I think Wagner would be a great veteran presence, but my first and foremost, you got to find a way to keep Caden Ellis. Say he is.
That's your number 1.
That's got to be your priority is Caden Ellis.
Man, there's some. We'll talk about it next podcast. We'll run this thing for 2 hours. We keep talking about free agency. But there's some nice cornerback positions out there too, which we need very bad. If Tampa Bay somehow lets Jamal Dean fall, you got to grab him. Jamal Dean has been a huge impact of what that defense brings in Tampa. But we'll speak on that later on as the season goes. We got a lot to talk about when it comes to off-season rehires or re-signings. Sterling Woods with the Devin Bush. That'd be a great signing as well. Shout out to John Moreno watching all the way from Galveston, Texas. We appreciate you, brother. This is why we run this podcast, man. So Falcon fans all around the world can hear about us, so y'all can spread us out to more Falcon fans. One day I want everybody in the whole United States watching DFU. That's the goal. That's the plan. And without you guys, man, it's not possible. So we appreciate you, John, Sterling Woods, Obnal, all these people in the chat, man. I mean, the chat has really came through tonight. Miss Samantha, Miss Christy, you guys have brought some great topics to the podcast. Mr. Mark as well with his comments earlier on in the show. You guys kept us rolling tonight. Nick Bungalow as well, watching all the way from Canada. So shout out to Nick for tuning in to DFU on the whole other side of the world, guys. Shout out to everybody that's been here tonight, man. We greatly appreciate y'all. I will say one thing before we give our shout outs. If you're listening to the podcast, if you're watching the podcast right now on Twitter, please head over to YouTube at Dirty Fanatics United. Hit that subscribe button for us, man. It helps us out tremendously. It gets us out to more Falcon fans. It pushes the algorithm for us. If you're watching on YouTube right now, which we have a total views on YouTube of 11 people right this moment, please, please, please hit that like button, guys. It pushes this show out so much further than you guys could understand. It's free. It takes a minute to click the button. And if you're not subscribed, man, please do so. With that being said, Mr. David, a.k.a. Recognized Game, give me a shout-outs for tonight. And then, Cody, you follow it up after Mr. David.
Well, definitely want to give a shout-out to Mark Smith. That's one of my buddies that, we sit down and talk, sports, not just Falcons, but, we meet at Hooters every Wednesday night, Wednesday for lunch, and we sit down and talk abundance of topics. Invited him to the show tonight, and he showed up. I always bring some good content, always some good topics every week. One of the guys I'm riding down to Tampa with this week to rep the Dirty Birds with. So definitely appreciate him coming on tonight, helping out the podcast and everything. As always, appreciate you guys for, allowing me, always, to sit down and chop it up with you all every week. I never will forget the fam and the good Lord above. So, thank you guys.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Mr. David, taking your time out of your night to talk about the Atlanta Falcons here with DFU. Cody, shout-outs for tonight, brother. Glad to have you on tonight. It's been a minute since we've sat behind the screen and chatted up about these Dirty Birds. Glad to have you back on the show tonight. And Miss Christy says, shared with the Lady Birds of AF and Atlanta Falcons Nation. Shout out to Miss Christy for pushing us out to more diehard Atlanta Falcon fans. We appreciate you, Miss Christy. Cody, shout-outs for tonight, brother.
Yeah, shout out to you guys coming on another difficult night to talk about Dirty Bird football. I mean, we must love our birds, boys, to sit here and do this because it's so much more fun doing this after we win. Remember a couple of weeks ago when I was shirtless? Because
Kirk O'Chain.
Kirk O'Chain.
So shout out to you guys coming on and talking about it because, this is kind of like group therapy and it feels absolutely good to talk to, other diehards. So, shout out to you guys coming on after a loss and still talking, still probably the most positive Falcon content creators that are out there, man. I was saying there's a lot of guys, that are so down and out, but here we are. We're still, trying to keep it as positive as we can. But, so shout out to y'all. Shout out to everybody who's watching. Without y'all, there is no show. So like Chase said, simple like, share, gets us out there, gets us to more Dirty Bird fans. Hopefully one day we're the flagship podcast for the Dirty Birds, which would be really nice. Man, Falcons, just beat the damn Saints twice for me, please. That's all I'm asking.
Let's go get the Bucks.
Let's go get the Bucks. Get that redemption.
Beat the Bucks, but please just beat the damn Saints twice. I mean, that's all I'm asking at this point. Just beat the Saints twice. But man, shout out, again to y'all. Shout out to the wife. Shout out to the good Lord above because we got to wake up and to be honest, guys, how lucky are we that we got to wake up and we got to watch our Dirty Birds, in the first place.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So shout out to good Lord above, but shout out to the wife out there watching. Always, guys, just rise up.
Right. So I want to say, go ahead.
I want to say that you were the topic for Thanksgiving dinner. I was like, my brother-in-law watches the podcast from North Carolina, and he was like, who was the guy on the with the chains on with the no shirt on? All right, that's Kirk O'Chains, man. He does his character. That's
Kirk's long lost cousin.
I had to explain to him the backstory and show him the picture of Kirk Cousins.
That's the other white meat right there, buddy.
Hey, man, I want to say one thing before we give our shout outs. I want to say, who's that coming down the track?
Who's that coming down the track?
It's the mean machine in red and black.
It's the mean machine in red and black.
Nothing finer in the land.
Nothing finer in the land
than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.
Than a drunk, obnoxious
Georgia fan.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Sick.
Let's go, man. Them boys pulled off the SEC title in the bins, man. Could not be more happy than how the season panned out. You give absolute belt to ass to the Alabama Roll Tide. I like to call them Low Tide this week after that 28-7 in the bins, man. What a season. I think Kirby Smart could really take this team back to a natty, boys. We may be getting a new upgrade on the hat.
It'll take another hour if we start talking about Georgia.
Yes, sir.
BCS, because there's no way those rankings should have the 12 that got in.
Man,
it's a lot of that was jacked up.
Bama's the only 3L team to make the playoffs. Notre Dame with 2 losses.
And Miami, neither Miami nor Notre Dame played in the this weekend, and then you move Miami in front of Notre Dame, and both of them were vital. The
fact that Bama stays at 9 after the loss, after a 3-touchdown loss to the number
I'm just saying
14 or 13.
But they had to get the ACC in the playoffs somehow, and then they moved. Duke couldn't get in, so they moved Miami in front of Notre Dame. Come on, just go ahead and drop Alabama out of it. Keep everything.
Me and David, me and my buddy at he's a diehard Falcon fan, Mr. Ricky. Shout out to Rick. He said we was talking one day, and I think it was Rick I was talking to. I said I feel like the committee is nothing but a bunch of drunk man talk. They sit down, they crack the beer open, and they decide who they want in that playoff bracket. Shout out to Mr. Mark. He says, "Hook 'em horns." Shout out to everybody that tuned in tonight, man. Didn't Texas beat Bama? It was Texas.
Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia as well. But Texas took out Bama earlier on in the season, I believe, didn't they?
It was they Texas, lost against Oklahoma and
who was the second team?
It was Oklahoma, Georgia, and
FSU.
FSU. That's right.
No, I want to say shout out to Mr. Mark about the Horns because they beat Texas A&M to even allow us to get this SEC championship. So shout out to them Texas Horns over there. Hook them.
Don't give them any credit for that. I'll hear that all week. I gotta be a Tampa with them all week. Don't give them any credit for anything Texas did.
Hey, man, but on the real, though, shout out to everybody that tuned in tonight, man. Enough of the Georgia Bulldog talk. We may have to do that, a little bit of some Georgia talk when the playoffs come around. But shout out to everybody that tuned in tonight, man. I appreciate you guys. You don't know, this was just a small dream that I had 2 years ago of running a podcast, and you guys turned it into a reality, man. At 601 subscribers now, we want to hit 1K so bad. So bad. So if you're new to the channel, if you're tuning in after the live video, please hit that subscribe button, man. Get us to 1K. We cannot do it without you. I want to give a shout out to the whole team here at DFU. My guy David, Cody, Rick, Robert, and my guy Philip, aka Avitz. Man, y'all say some prayers for Avitz because he's a little down about these Dirty Birds right now. He don't know how to react to a losing season again here in Atlanta. So y'all say a prayer for my boy Avitz, man. Y'all say as always, we like to say here on the podcast, man.
Let's say maybe let him off the roof from cleaning so he could be here to do this.
Yeah.
With us,
hey, get off the gutters. Get off. We're good. Shout out to Philip, man. Shout out to David, Rick, Robert. We appreciate you guys for taking the time out your night to come and talk Falcon football with us. Mark said, I love it. We love it too, brother. Glad to have you here tonight. Shout out to everybody here, man. As always, rise up. we will be
just
live.
don't know what you did.
We will be live again sometime this week, guys. Like I said, please ring the bell so you know when we go live. It's a lot of late-minute, last-second live situations here with DFW. We all got a busy schedule. But we will be live before the Thursday night game. David, Wednesday night work for you?
No. Well, Wednesday, yeah, we'll get in Tampa early enough. I might be out and about, but
let's do a Tuesday night show. Rick will be available as well. We'll do a Tuesday night show. So Tuesday night,
whenever you call it, I'll make time to, like I said, you can log on from your phone, so I'll be able to, step away and do it. So whenever y'all want to do it, I'm game.
Hey, man, y'all stay tuned. Ring the bell. As always, shout out to the wife. If I don't give her a shout out, I'll hear about it. Shout out to the wife in the living room with the babies, man. I hear them in there screaming that vegetable soup is ready. So we about to grub, man, and get ready for the work week. As always, shout out to the good Lord above for allowing us to be breathing right now to talk about these Dirty Birds. As always, rise up, A-Town down. We appreciate y'all guys, man. We out.